Hello, and welcome to our 2022 Review of the Year.
Let's take a look back at some of the issues which hit the headlines over the last 12 months. At the start of the year, the European Court of Human Rights threw out LGBT campaigner Gareth Leeds' challenge to the landmark Ashes Baking Company ruling. The court judged the application inadmissible, saying Lee was asking the court to usurp the role of the domestic courts.
Youth charity Children in Scotland urged Holyrood to extend its already controversial sex swap plans for 16-year-olds to include children from the age of 12. Campaigners described the recommendations as downright irresponsible.
The end of the month witnessed significant developments in the push to ban conversion therapy. The UK Equality and Human Rights Commission raised significant concerns about the impact of proposals in England and Wales on churches, parents and teachers. North of the border, the Christian Institute warned the Scottish Government that it was considering the most extreme legislation on conversion therapy in the Western world.
In February, the Institute outlined the worrying implications of the government's online safety bill. In a statement, it welcomed steps to protect children from pornography, but said other proposals went too far and risked censoring mainstream Christian teaching. And Kenneth Ferguson spoke to us of his gratitude for God's help during his discrimination battle with the Robertson Trust. The Christian CEO was sacked by Scotland's largest grant-making trust over his church's views on marriage, but, with assistance from the CI, successfully sued for wrongful dismissal.
During March, peers voted against an amendment to the Health and Care Bill that sought to allow terminally ill adults to get help from doctors to kill themselves. It was the 12th time in 25 years that such proposals had not been passed by UK parliamentarians. Following the introduction of a smacking ban in Wales, there were calls for parents to be criminalised for reasonable chastisement in England and Northern Ireland. But a spokesman for the Be Reasonable campaign said the Welsh Government had misled the public and that the ban will criminalise ordinary, loving parents.
And MPs voted to make emergency measures allowing home abortions in England permanent, just weeks after the government said they would end. In April, the UK's Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion or Belief warned the House of Commons about the growing threat of digital persecution, including online censorship. Fiona Bruce MP highlighted that religious liberty is a foundation of a stable and secure democratic society.
In May, evangelicals in Scotland severely criticised the Church of Scotland's vote to allow ministers to conduct same-sex weddings in its churches. Former Kirk Minister Reverend Dr. William Phillip of the Tron Glasgow said the denomination had abandoned the Bible.
In June, Lord Frost urged Boris Johnson to overhaul the online safety bill as one of his top priorities. He called on the then Prime Minister to bring forward only the elements which don't kill free speech.
On the 24th of June, the US Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in a landmark ruling which confirmed there is no constitutional right to an abortion. As a result, power to legislate on abortion was handed back to individual states, many of which quickly introduced laws to ban or restrict access to abortion.
Later, the Christian Institute said that Stonewall dogma had been influencing Ofsted inspections for far too long. The warning came after it emerged Ofsted had cited a lack of teaching gender identity and reassignment among reasons for giving schools low ratings.
And at the end of the month, the government finally amended the law on abuse of trust to make it illegal for sports coaches and religious leaders to engage in sexual activity with 16 and 17-year-olds in their care. The Institute had been campaigning on the issue for more than 20 years.
In July, a tribunal found that an employer had unfairly treated women's rights campaigner Maya Forstater on the basis of her belief that men cannot become women. The judge ruled the campaigner had been subject to both direct discrimination and victimisation because of her views.
And NHS England announced that its controversial gender clinic for children would close by spring after an independent report found that it was not fit for purpose. It was revealed just 2 weeks later that the clinic could be facing legal action from at least 1,000 families over its unquestioning affirmative approach towards gender-confused children.
At the end of August, a US court ruled that a Christian photographer could not be compelled to promote same-sex weddings. It said the local government could not force Chelsea Nelson to express messages inconsistent with her beliefs.
The new youth edition of our popular Bible study series Living Christianity was launched in September. It provides engaging, biblically faithful content to help young believers aged around 11 to 16 to follow Jesus in every area of life.
October will largely be remembered for Liz Truss stepping down as Prime Minister after just 45 days in office. Ahead of her exit, MPs gave their backing to the introduction of censorship zones around abortion clinics in England and Wales. The amendment to the Public Order Bill would outlaw prayer and offers of help to women outside clinics, and anyone found guilty of breaching the rules would face a possible 6 months in prison.
At the end of the month, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association was awarded almost £100,000 in damages after a Glasgow venue cancelled its gospel event over Franklin Graham's Christian beliefs on marriage and sexual ethics. Early in November, new Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced he wants to safeguard children from inappropriate sex education. The Telegraph reported he wants to ensure parents can view relationships and sex education content, including resources provided by outside organisations.
Former BBC journalist David Campanelli told the CI he intends to pursue legal action for harassment as he faces being removed as a Liberal Democrat candidate over his Christian values. Activists within the party told him, "We do not recognise your right to have a conscience." The CI warned that concessions to the Gender Self-ID Bill, reportedly being considered by the Scottish Government, barely scratched the surface of its problems. The Institute said the bill would cause even greater misery and confusion for children and their families than under the current law.
And at the end of a busy month, Culture Secretary Michelle Donnellan announced that controversial wording relating to content deemed illegal but harmful would be dropped from the Online Safety Bill. The CI welcomed the news, noting the minister had highlighted the large amount of correspondence she had received from the public. In December, the Charity Commission launched a full statutory inquiry into trans activist group Mermaids after newly identified issues emerged about the group's governance and management. The Secretary of State for Northern Ireland carried out the Westminster government's threat to override the Northern Ireland Executive by formally commissioning abortion services across the province.
And finally, in a legal opinion for the Christian Institute, leading human rights lawyer Aidan O'Neill KC branded the Scottish Government's far-reaching conversion therapy plans as fundamentally illiberal and beyond the powers of the Scottish Parliament to legislate. As a result, the Institute announced it is now preparing the ground for legal action against the Scottish Government. Before we finish, we'd like to take a moment to remember the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who died on the 8th of September.
The longest reigning monarch in British history had celebrated her Platinum Jubilee earlier in the year. Director of the Christian Institute, Colin Hart, paid tribute to Her Majesty's devotion to faith and duty and gave thanks to God for her life of selfless service. In 1952, in her first Christmas broadcast, she asked the nation to pray that God may give me wisdom and strength to carry out the solemn promises I shall be making, and that I may faithfully serve Him and you all the days of my life. God answered that prayer.
Thank you for standing with us through another challenging year. Your prayers and support have made such a difference and are invaluable to us. We give thanks to God and trust Him to provide for us and for you in 2023.
From Joanna and me, and everyone at the Christian Institute, we pray you have a blessed new year.
Goodbye.